I've been extremely excited to get to this point with the amp, so I can't wait. We are finally installing the 3-prong power cord, which means we are nearly there, which is awesome. I've already installed the strain relief and stripped the cord. So now we can go ahead and untangle these wires here. Now I've seen a lot of differing feedback or just differing opinions on the best way to do the 3-prong conversion. So we'll get to these later. I'm just going to kind of tuck them out of the way and get that just so it's not in my way whatsoever. But one thing is certain is that I want to obviously do a chassis ground with this ground wire, and I need this to be longer than these other 2 wires here. So that's the one thing I know for sure. So one thing I need to think about, there appears to be some kind of stamp here. I don't know if you guys will be able to see that, but I actually can't make out what it says. But there is a original stamp there, some kind of number system. And originally I was thinking I would just do the solder joint there. But now I'm thinking either A, I will do the chassis ground here, which is fine, although it is a little close to this wire here, which makes me a little nervous with the super large soldering iron. Or another idea I had was, what if I just did it on the side of the chassis? Because it makes no difference if it's on the floor of the chassis or the side of the chassis, as far as I know. So I'm going to try and mock up a little bit what that might look like. That would definitely be easiest to install, is if I just did that, and then it would be out of the way, which I kind of like. So if I were to do something like that, and it's pretty out of the way. Let me strip the wire real quick. So we want to make sure we tin this as well. So I'm going to go ahead, see if I can position this just out of the way a little bit. I've got the giant soldering iron warmed up. I'm just going to quickly touch this just so I can get a little bit. Cool. That way it's nice and tinned, and it should be a lot easier to solder the chassis. So I'm a little nervous if I do it to the side, somebody's going to be like, oh, you can't do that because for some reason it's not as good of a connection. I'm not really sure, but I really do prefer this being totally out of the way. I could do it here, I guess, but it's just really close to other things. So it could be like that. I kind of like it more like this. If I put the chassis on its side, that's an idea. How would I do that with the camera? The camera is always the issue. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause here and come back. All right, this is a bit crazy, but I think it'll be a lot better like this. I'm going to install it like so. And then I can tuck this cable back a little bit like that, so it's really completely out of the way. So I think that's going to be the move. So we'll go with that plan. So I want to put it roughly here. So that just means I need to clean this area. So I got some naphtha here. Put a little bit on the shop towel. Clean that area up. That's about as clean as it's going to get. So again, we're going to shoot for about there. So next, I want to go ahead and take my dental pick here and just rough up the surface a little bit. All right, that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to go ahead and take a flathead screwdriver and just get a little bit of some deeper scratches in there. Perfect. So next I'm going to clean it one more time with naphtha. All right, now we have the scary part, using the giant soldering iron. And I gotta try and hold this and position it while doing all this. I'm gonna rotate the amp just a bit more. Hopefully still give you guys a decent view here, but obviously priority is me being able to do this. In fact, I'm gonna take this cable and move it behind so it's out of my way completely. Apply solder. All right, so we've got our first little pool of solder now. All right, let's give that a whirl. I'm sorry if you guys can't see anything. Not really sure how to position this any better without completely moving the tripod. I'll try something. All right, I think it looks pretty good. Let me add a little bit more solder. All right, we'll let that cool. See what that looks like. It's obviously dirty, but we'll clean that up. But it looks okay, I think. Honestly, this is one of the hardest things to do. I just cleaned up the solder joint, showing you guys what that looks like. I think it looks pretty good to me. Unfortunately, I did get some marks on the wire here from the helping hand. Didn't actually go through the wire or anything like that, but did leave some indentations. That's a bummer. So I've never really used those before, so I need to put a little bit of a buffer between the wire and those alligator clips next time. But there it is. I think it looks pretty good. It's definitely solid, no question about that. It's maybe not the prettiest. I'm not really sure how to not get a wide flat pool of solder. I think it really just comes down to the tip on my soldering iron, but either way, I'm going to call that good. So while I've got the big soldering iron out, I'm going to go ahead and hit this joint in particular one more time. This looks to be factory, but I just want to make sure that's really solid. So I'm going to do that real quick. All right, that looks much better. Obviously, it's got all this nasty flux and stuff around it, but I will be able to clean that off, no problem. This one looks solid to me, so I'm not going to mess with that. And these other ground points look solid to me as well, so I think we can leave those alone. This one just looked like it might be slightly lifting up over here. So beautiful. You can see the ground connection here completely out of the way, not really in your face, which I like. So now we can go ahead and flip the amp over so I can see the other side, and we'll install the hot and neutral to the right positions. Now I say right in quotation marks because I know it's kind of a contentious issue and a lot of people have differing opinions on what, is the right way. But I'm going to try it one way, and then you guys can tell me if I did okay or not. All right, let's move it around. It's nice to come back to this small soldering iron. Feels much more comfortable in the hand. So we're going to move these out of the way for right now. Now what we want to do is, from what I understand, remove the power transformer, these black wires here, from the fuse and the switch, and because they will be going elsewhere. So let's go ahead and remove that. All right, there's one. And there's two. And then I'm going to remove this one right here from the fuse. It's got a giant glob of solder on it, so I'm going to clean that up. Okay, now we're going to remove the connection here. Remove the connection at this end of the receptacle. So now I want to go power to the fuse. So we'll go right there. So we need to cut that short. All right, we can go ahead and solder that on now. One thing I didn't even think about is whether there's still a fuse in it or not. Oof, that's hot. Yep, that was a mistake. All right, learn from me. Take the fuse out before you do that. I didn't think about it till just now. Obviously, that was, in retrospect, dumb, but here we are, learning in real time. All right, so now we will go white to here. I'm going to feed it under the black. So we can cut this quite short. All right, so we've got the white there. And then joining the white, I will have one of the primaries. I don't believe it matters which one, so I chose this one. It's a very like slimy cable. Try and run it under everything here. Realize my hands are probably blocking a lot for you guys. Sorry about that, but it is what it is. There we go. All right, so now we just want to go ahead and get this wire hooked up. Clean off some of that melted lead length. All right, that took a lot of work to get that right, but it should be super solid now once I solder this in. Perfect. All right, what am I missing? This end of the primary. So this end of the primary would go to I guess would be to the switch. And then this should go to the fuse, I think. Let me put this back. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. This is my first 3-prong conversion, I think. Or at least one with Fender style like this. I can't remember if I did a 3-prong conversion with the magnetone. Another video series on my channel. Wow. So then this cable I need to find where that's going to. I think for the extra cables here, I'm just gonna solder them all to this ground switch. So nothing will actually, it won't do anything, but they're just kind of all accounted for. So I'll just get that out of the way for right now. And we'll put this one from the power switch to this part of the fuse holder. So for this one, I just want to be careful not to hit this black wire, obviously. Just want to make sure it's good front and back. So now we'll go ahead and solder in these extra cables that were original but no longer doing anything, and we'll just add them to here, and then we should be good to go. All right, there we go. All of the wires that were connected to the ground switch are still connected. Just out of the way now. And we can go ahead and tuck this new black wire so it's not in your face in the back like so. I don't really care about these being good solder joints because nothing's connected to them. Perfect. So to recap here, what do we got? We have the ground from the 3-prong soldered to the chassis here. We've got the white, which I believe is the neutral, that's going to this receptacle port. And then also connected to that receptacle port is one of the black wires off the transformer. And then the black wire off the 3-prong is going all the way over to the fuse right here. And then connected to the other part of the fuse is a original wire going to the switch. And then the switch has the other one of the 2 black wires coming off of the transformer, one of the primaries. So I believe that is at least one of the most common ways that's recommended to do it. So there you go. Let me know in the comments if I did it correctly or not. That took a long time, longer than longer than I had hoped, but we're so close now. Stoked. So the keen-eyed among you might have noticed that I am missing a resistor. That's what happens when you do all of that work at, 1 in the morning, but totally fine because I already had planned to check over everything, and that was pretty obvious in the next morning when I looked at everything. So right here is the location for a 100 ohm resistor. So I've got that here. There's a few different ways I've seen people install these before. Obviously factory would have been just like any of the other resistors here, but I've also seen people talk about doing this kind of like suspension bridge kind of looking thing, or however, I don't even know what you would call that, but just have a little bit of a curve and it's sitting on top. And that's because this is the widest stretch that any resistor has on the board, and it's going across this way. So as the board moves, and I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but it is significantly higher here than it is here or here. The board has definitely a pretty nice ramp to it. It'll pull that resistor out, and this has to do, I believe, with the negative bias or something, or no, it's negative feedback. I can't remember, but it's an important place. It's a very important resistor. So we're gonna go ahead and install that in there, but first I'm gonna take out the old solder from these spots that I installed the other day and get that in there. So I've got the 100 ohm resistor in place. I did end up doing little kind of loops on the end so that it's sitting a bit higher and has the ability to kind of flex a bit more with the board. You'll be able to see it when I do a close up. And then I did also replace this 100K with a new 100K just because the one I had in there got a little bit mangled when I tried to get it out of the eyelet to clean these out so I can get the 100 ohm in. So let's go ahead and solder these 3 positions, and then we will do a once over for every single resistor, make sure everything is correct, and then double check it probably one more time just to be sure. So we'll go ahead and solder this in now.
Hey, get. Good boy. Good boy. Just lay down. Lay down and take it easy.
All right, so we've got those 3 soldered in. Looks pretty good. So now I'm going to bring out the schematic and meticulously check every single piece. We got to make sure this is right before we try turning it on. Unfrickin' believable. All right, guys, this amp is buttoned up. It's basically good to go. I checked through everything, all of the resistors in the right place. Everything measures correctly. We got the 3-prong cable in here. she's basically ready to go, throw some tubes in her and start checking the bias, and we can play it. There's one piece though that's missing on this amp, and not missing, but is not correct. It's just kind of the one little asterisk next to this amp, which is otherwise just incredible piece, and that is the output transformer. So the output transformer, as shown in episode 1, we were kind of inspecting the amp, is actually from a later date. So all the transformers in the amp date mid-64. The output transformer, I believe, dated the very beginning of 66, if I remember correctly. So it is the correct output transformer, so it is the exact same part that this amp would have come with, but the date code is wrong. And that's the one little thing that's kind of a bummer about this amp. Doesn't affect anything other than value, but just kind of, you know, the one little piece that's wrong about the amp. So I made some save searches on eBay and Reverb, just in case, you know, on the off chance that somebody would have, you know, the exact transformer I need with the right date code. I didn't think, you know, anything of it. It'd probably take years for that to pop up. Just kind of a Hail Mary, if you will. Well, I was going through Craigslist, and look what I found. So you go, Tanner, that's a Pro Reverb. What are you talking about here? So yeah, 67 Pro Reverb. I caught my eye because, you know, price looks decent, but it's a silver face instead of 67, which I would expect to be a black face. And I don't see a drip edge around it. So I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I don't know much about these amps, but kind of interesting. So I clicked on it, going through the photos. You know, it looks okay. It looks kind of rough, but it's all right. And then I got to the transformers. So transformer 67, date 606-7. This one 606-7. And then I found this. There's the output transformer. So if you guys don't know, a Pro Reverb uses the exact same output transformer as a Vibrolux. And this 67 Pro Reverb, whatever it is, for some reason has a 1964 output transformer, 606-4- something. I can't read that, but it looks like kind of a fairly large number. So mid 64 is what it looks like. And is, you know, has the correct part number 12565A, I think is what that says. That looks correct. So this is my needle in a gigantic haystack find, and it's local, and it's in a 67 Pro Reverb that at some point in its life had a transformer replacement, but not, you know, with the correct, or not even with a newer part, but with an older part that happens to be exactly what I need. So I can't believe it, guys. I'm like still in shock about this. So the actual transformer in this amp would work better in this amp as well. It would be more correct than what's in it currently. So it actually would do well by both amps swapping the output transformers. So I'm going to reach out to this guy and see if we can meet up today or tomorrow. And man, if this works out, what are the odds of that? Insane. So let's reach out to the guy, and fingers crossed by the next episode, you guys will have good news and we'll begin installing the new output transformer. Oh, I hope that works out. I'm so excited. All right, guys, until next time, see ya.